dat to the Who Dat Nation. Boy, that feels good. It's been so long. It feels like forever since I've talked to my fellow Who Dats. This is the Dome Patrol podcast that is brought to you by the KB Radio Network. And this is your podcast for the New Orleans Saints. And we have completed the NFL draft of 2023, and the New Orleans Saints have made some very impressive picks this year. I'm actually proud of my squad. I am so happy with this draft. We're going to go over every pick that the New Orleans Saints made in this past weekend's draft. A grand total of 7 new additions to the squad, and all seven of these individuals, I can honestly say, can play a part. Maybe one or two that I can see sitting on the bench, but waiting their turn. But that's just a testament to the depth of this roster, and that's a good that's a good thing. That's a real good thing. I mean, you want to have some backup plans, especially over the past few years. We can attest to injuries popping up. Anything can happen, and we've been hampered with injuries for the past 2 or 3 years that has really set us back in our quest for another Super Bowl championship or even a division championship going by last year. But these are some holes that needed to be filled. They were some I would say I was gonna do a show previewing the draft, but I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what the Saints were just desperately in need of. Not so much that we were so um well built, that we didn't really need to address the issues. The problem was we had a lot of issues, a lot. On the defensive line, we have some issues. I guess you could say on the offensive line as of late, and that used to be the Saints' strong suit, that offensive line. But as of late, man, it has been riddled with injuries. Guys not really stepping up. Last year was really bad. This was the worst I saw the Saints offensive line. But when I look down the line, I'm like, well, where do we start? Where do we start? We just addressed the center. We've been addressing center um what, about 3-4 years, when Max Unger retired, and then Saints got nervous and draft Cesar Ruiz in the first round, and then the following year you draft another center. We just been plugging in. We lost Armstead a couple of years ago. We had to address that left tackle position. That's why we drafted Trevor Penning in the last year's draft. It was just so much going on. And Andrus Peat, I know he just got paid. You know, I never was a big Andrus Peat guy. Andrus Peat has his plate. I like Andrus Peat as a run blocker, but as a pass protector, that's not his strong suit. He is a beast run blocking. But I need you to protect the quarterback, man. That is the moneymaker. That's where you make your money, and it's been a struggle in that position. But also is that looming judgment, I guess you could say, of what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara, our running back. That incident that took place a couple of years ago in Las Vegas where a young man got, beat half to death in an elevator or hallway, wherever it was. And so much has came out that it doesn't look good for Alvin Kamara, to be quite honest with you. So I don't see him playing much next year, if at all. I mean, because playing should be the last thing on his mind, because from the way that looked, the way that played out, he may be facing some jail time. I'm not wishing it on him. I pray that it all works out at the end, but it's not looking good. It's really not looking too good for him. And so we needed to address that as well. We did bring in Jamal Williams, who is a very good running back, and in free agency. So that is a plus, but you still need something else there. And so, where do we start in this draft? Where do we begin? Do we just go with the best available? Do we go with our most pressing need? Hey, this is what happened just this past weekend in the NFL draft. And I, I was shocked by the moves that were made. Saints got the 29th pick in the first round this year. We all know Saints didn't have a first round pick when the season ended because we traded away that first round pick last year to get two first round picks, which turned into Trevor Penning and Chris Olave, which Chris Olave was a, when you look at it, I wasn't mad that we didn't have a first round pick. I know a lot of people were just pulling their hair out. Oh, we don't have a first round pick this year. Well, we had it. We do have it. It's already here. He's already producing. So I didn't really flip out over that. But I knew in the back of my mind there was an opportunity for us to get a first round pick because I knew Sean Payton was not going to just sit on the sidelines another year. Coach is coach, and he wanted to coach. And so, lo and behold, the Denver Broncos came a knocking. So apart since Sean Payton is still under contract, or was still under contract with the New Orleans Saints, we had to trade him. It had to be a trade. And a part of that trade was a first round pick. And we got the 29th pick in the first round this year. So it all worked out perfectly, if you ask me. So with that pick, the New Orleans Saints drafted Brian Bresee, defensive tackle out of Clemson. Bresee is a 6'5", 305-pound defensive tackle. He was a former #1 recruit in the country who burst onto the scene as a freshman All-American in 2020. Bresee became the second ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year in Clemson history. He has tallied 64 tackles, 15 for loss, 9 sacks, and 4 pass breakups on 915 snaps from scrimmage over 26 games in his career. Those are impressive numbers. And you have to take into account that last year he didn't play the whole year. Tragically, his sister, who was battling cancer, passed away. Uh, and that took a toll, and he left the team to be with his family, understandably. The first couple of years he was injured. I think he was a shoulder or something like that, but he didn't play the entirety of his college career due to an injury and the tragedy that happened in his family. So I understand that. But for the time that he was on the field, he is a monster. I looked him up immediately after he was drafted by the Saints, and I was just blown away on how fast he is. The way he moves his hands, the way he can get around offensive lineman and get to the quarterback, be disruptive in the backfield. I am excited for this pick. I think this was probably the best pick that the Saints could have made at that position. Uh, One of the notes that a lot of the analysts were saying, the Saints got a steal here because Brian Bresee is a top 10 pick. He would have been a top 10 pick had not been for what he, was going through. So that really ironically helped the Saints because he just fell down the draft into the Saints' lap. And he was high on the board on a lot of teams, but when it comes to the draft, there's a lot of risks that you take. You hope that somebody's there. You really don't want to move up. You don't want to give up too much capital. So sometimes you got to take that chance that the player that you truly want will fall into your lap. And the Saints took that chance, and lo and behold, we got precisely what we needed. That is what you need on this defensive line. We don't have anybody on this defensive line as it stands right now or prior to the draft this weekend that I can honestly say that offensive coordinators stay up at night planning around. Yeah, you can make the argument for Cam Jordan, but Cam Jordan is getting up there in age. He is the workhorse. He is a beast. I love Cam Jordan. I hope that he continues to play for another 5, 6 years, but realistically, it's coming to an end. You know what I'm saying? And we've been trying to address this offensive line forever. Marcus Davenport didn't play out. The jury is still out on Peyton Turner. He stays hurt. But when he's on the field, I've noticed that the man, he's good. But it's just a matter of him getting on the field. So that's been the struggle with Peyton Turner. So we need something on that line that can be destructive, that can allow players, our linebackers like a Demario Davis, do what he do. And so this was a awesome pickup from the New Orleans Saints. Happy with our first overall pick. Brian Greasy. Brian, that's a throwback there. Brian Breesy, uh, from Clemson, defensive tackle. Saints moving on to the second round, and they had a high second round pick. And this kind of, if you want to look at it from this aspect, it was kind of like a first round pick since it was so high. It was number 40. And now that you have addressed the defensive line, where do we go now? Well, in kind of a shock, the Saints went back to the defensive line and got a pass rusher. I mean, a true pass rusher, a defensive end. The New Orleans Saints select Notre Dame defensive end Isaiah Foskey with the 40th pick in the second round. Foskey is 6'5", 260 pounds. He took over as the team's primary pass rusher in 2021, leading the Notre Dame Irish with 12.5 tackles for loss among his 52 total stops in 13 starts, tied for 10th in the FBS with 11 sacks, while also tying for the national lead with 6 forced fumbles. He was a second team All-American in 2022 and a finalist for the Ted Hendricks Award as the nation's top defensive end after leading the squad with 14 tackles for loss and tied for 6th in the FBS with 11 sacks among his 45 tackles in 12 starts. This man has a motor. He is a beast. I remember seeing him. I saw him play, and oh man, he's a dog around that edge. And this is another addition that the Saints desperately needed. Uh, we've been playing around, as I stated before, with this defensive end position. This would be a great addition on the other side of Cam Jordan. Speaking of him, Cam Jordan gets a lot of double teams because there's no other threats along that line. And so if you put these two young men on this defensive line, it's pick your poison. It's pick your poison. Who are you going to double team? And that's going to free up somebody like a Cam Jordan, to come through that line and be disruptive. And let's not forget that you still have a Peyton Turner. Here's hoping that he is healthy going into this season, and oh man, the sky's the limit. It's a lot to be excited about here, people. I am super excited for this. Your secondary is set. You have everything you need in that secondary to cover for these 3 to 4 seconds that you need. The problem we was having before, quarterbacks was sitting back there drinking a Coke, smoking a cigarette, just waiting for somebody to get open. There was no pressure. And so now if we could get some pressure, get these quarterbacks to move off their spots. Hey man, I'm all in on this. I am excited with that pick, with these first 2 picks in the draft. In the third round, we got an interesting pick, and it's interesting because I'm already in love with this cat. he is he is I guess you could say that mouthpiece that we need. And I didn't know anything about him until after he was drafted and he gave that interview. And I'm gonna tell you what he said, but it was beautiful. In case you didn't hear it, the New Orleans Saints selected TCU running back Kendrick Miller with the 71st pick in the third round. Miller is 5'11", 215 pounds. He broke out as a junior for the Horned Frogs, leading the team with 1,399 rushing yards off of 224 carries. That's an average of 6.2 per carry, and tied for eighth in the nation with 17 rushing touchdowns on 14 starts. Missing the national title game due to an injury. The 2022 first team All Big 12 conference pick also caught 16 passes for 116 yards. That's an average of 7.3 per catch. Kendrick Miller, he he made his announcement to the Who Dat Nation when he came out and said, "Now it depends on how you take it. Me personally, I loved it. I know a lot of people it probably rubbed the wrong way, namely Alvin Kamara, but this is what he said. He came out and said that he didn't come. He's not coming to New Orleans to sit on the bench. He's coming for that number one spot. He's not, with all due respect to Alvin Kamara, he said he loves Alvin Kamara, but he's coming for his spot. I love that. I love that. Now, will it happen? Probably not. But I love the fact that you got to have that swag. You got to have that confidence that look, I'm coming to be the starter, man. I'm not coming to back you up. I'm not a backup. I'm here to start, and be honest with you, Alvin Kamara needs that. All these players need that. Every player needs somebody to push him. You go back with Drew Brees, right? And we all love Drew Brees. I'm not pooing on Drew Brees. But Drew Brees, at times, you could tell he got comfortable. When he used to throw those 2 interception games, those stupid passes he used to throw sometimes. And it didn't bother him because it weren't like they were going to bench him because there was nobody behind him to push him. Now, if you have somebody behind Alvin Kamara when you go through stretches where he doesn't score, when he runs out of bounds, when he needs to fight for that extra yard or two, he'll know in the back of his head, if I don't do my job, Miller is right behind me ready to do it. He's hungry. And I'm all for that. Plus, I'm looking at highlights of this young man run. It's a thing of beauty. I like how he runs. I think he's a very talented running back. Great addition to the running back room. So we'll see how that plays out. Moving on to the fourth round. We had 2 picks in the fourth round of the draft this year, and the Saints addressed another need. I'm telling you, this was a awesome draft. This is an A-plus draft. The New Orleans Saints traded up to select Old Dominion tackle Nick Saldavy. I believe that's how you say his name. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering it. With the 103rd pick in the fourth round. Nick is 6'6", 318 pounds. He was a 3-year starter at right tackle at Old Dominion and a 2-time all-conference selection. Nick started 35 career games, including 34 at right tackle and 1 in 2022 at right guard. Nick became the 3rd player in ODU history to play in the Reese Senior Bowl and the 6th player to compete at the NFL Scouting Combine. He was the first Old Dominion offensive lineman to participate in both the Senior Bowl and the Combine. I don't know a lot about him. They don't have a lot of stats that I was trying to look up about him throughout his career at Old Dominion, but it's good to have another body on that offensive line. And is a big fella, 6'6", 300, 300 and something pounds. That is juicy, man. And to say that in the history of that school, that university, he's the first player to ever be invited to the combine, to ever participate in the Senior Bowl, that says a lot. You know, that does say a lot. But we shall see how it all plays out with this offensive tackle. Uh, good pickup. Good pickup. Now we move on to our second pick in the fourth round, and this was an interesting pick. Very interesting. We just signed Derek Carr, quarterback, to a 4-year contract. Now you look at that 4-year deal, and it's probably more or less a 2-year deal, depending on how the money is structured. And so what you have in that quarterback room, you re-signed Jameis Winston, but that's only for a year. And I think Jameis Winston, I'm actually shocked he came back here for a year. But after this year, Jameis Winston going to be gone. So you still need somebody there. You need a young quarterback. This is something that plagued the Saints for years under the Drew Brees era. We didn't have anything behind Drew Brees. We didn't have an heir apparent. Now, I'm not saying this young man is the heir apparent because I don't know much about him. I don't know if he's the second coming, but you know, we this is the only time we get to find out. Now, this is probably the one pick that I wouldn't have messed with. I wouldn't have messed with this as much as I want a young quarterback to groom. Uh, I don't understand the Saints' fascination with short quarterbacks. It is this includes Drew Brees. Drew Brees was 6 feet tall, and so it's always a short quarterback that the Saints mess with. You know, when they drafted Ian Book, who's no longer with the team, he's a short quarterback. You know, when they had Chase Daniels here, he was short. We always had short quarterbacks, and this quarterback is no exception. The New Orleans Saints traded up to select Fresno State quarterback Jack Hartman with the 127th pick in the fourth round. I'm butchering these names. I don't know their names. I'm pretty sure I'll get it. I will get it by the time we start rolling around to play football. I'll know it verbatim. But Jack is 6 feet tall, 107 pounds, soaking wet. Soaking wet. He was a 3-year starter as quarterback of Fresno State, earning all Mountain West Conference honors in his last 2 seasons. In his final season at Fresno State, Jack passed for 2,896 yards on 252 of 350 pass attempts with 20 touchdowns and only 3 intercepts, which tells me he's a smart young man. He's smart with the ball. You know, he doesn't turn the ball over much. Now, he did the previous year. Now, that was his final year. The previous year, he threw 9 intercepts. But, you know, he learned from his mistakes, apparently, and really cut that number more than half. He really worked on that, and that's excellent to me. He also improved his completion percentage. He went from 64.7 to 72% completion percentage. So that lets me know that he gets in the lab, he studies, he's working on himself to get better, and that is very encouraging. Is he a quarterback that I can sit back and say he's going to be the future after Derek Carr? I don't know about all that. I honestly I cannot uh give you a yay or nay on that. I Time would tell. That's all I can say with concerning him. So we shall see how that plays out. But hey, if they're willing to work with him, teach him, give him time. Give him time. Ian Book, poor Ian Book, they didn't give him no time. They gave him no time and he was out the door. But it is what it is. So those were your 2 picks in the fourth round. We move on to the second. I'm second into the fifth round of the NFL draft, and the New Orleans Saints selected Minnesota safety Jordan Howden with the 146th pick in the fifth round. Howden is 6 feet tall, 103 pounds. Started 49 of his 58 career games. In the 5 seasons at Minnesota, Howden made 240 tackles. 168 of those were solo and had 5.5 tackles for loss while breaking up 20 passes and grabbing 4 interceptions. Um, this is another one I kind of scratch my head on because we are so packed in the defensive back room. We have so much, or so many, should I say, players in the secondary. Man, we have a plethora of safeties and corners. Granted, you can never have too much. You can never have too much of a good thing. But this is more of a body. I think this is more for depth. I don't see him overtaking anybody who is currently starting, on the team. But it's good to have depth. It's good to have depth. And let's see how he contributes, man. We shall see. We have to keep in mind once you get to the fifth, sixth, seventh round of the draft, it's more for depth reasons. You're not drafting anybody in these rounds to make a difference. You'll be lucky if anybody out of these rounds make the team. To be completely honest with you, so yeah, you really just getting these guys in these later rounds for depth reasons. So uh, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. There have been a lot of 6, 7 round picks who went on to have Hall of Fame careers. Shannon Sharp, Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a 7th round pick, I believe, but probably later than that. I don't forgot, but I know he was a late round. These players. I mean, you have undrafted players who have come on and took the starting spots. My mind gravitates to Pierre Thomas. We all remember Pierre. You know, one of the best running backs we had on the squad for many years. And he was undrafted. So it just goes to show you never know what you got until you get it. All right, we move on to the 6th round, and this is the New Orleans Saints' final pick in this year's 2023 NFL draft. And the Saints, I think got a good one here. They got another need, not a desperate need, not something that we should have moved up to get, but if something fell into our laps, I think this was the perfect time to uh, pick it, and they did. The New Orleans Saints selected Wake Forest wide receiver A.T. Perry with the 195th pick in the 6th round of the draft. Perry is 6'3", 195 pounds. He holds the program record for 15 touchdown receptions in 2021 and overall touchdown record with 28 touchdowns, which also is tied for 7th in ACC history. Perry tied the program record with 12 100-yard receiving games and is the only player in program history to have 2 double-digit touchdown seasons, doing so during the 2021 and 22 seasons. I like this pick. I love this pick. Should I say? He is a nice size, 6'3", 195 pounds. I believe he runs a 4.4 in the 40. He's quick. Uh, he catches with his hands. You know, he's breaking all these records. I'm excited. Going by the highlights that I saw, he is a force to be reckoned with. I am shocked at somebody with these amount of credentials were able to fall into the 6th round. I don't know any backstory, if he have any off the field things or whatever. I don't think so. Judging by what I read, throughout his career at Wake Forest, he seems to be a stand-up guy. So I'm all for this, man. And to have an extra piece in that receiving room, Oh man, you know, the sky's the limit there. I I love this pick. I love all the picks. Um, Even though some, like I said, the quarterback and the safety, I kind of like, okay, whatever, but it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt anything. All these picks addressed needs, and that's where I am super excited and happy about. Saints didn't just go out there in panic. That's what I was really, really scared for uh, going into this draft. Were they going to panic? Were they going to overdo it in a certain position? You remember the year when the Saints, it seemed like all seven picks were safeties. Y'all remember that year? It was like they just panicked. And then the year after we had all those injuries at running back, I think the Saints drafted like three running backs the following year. It's like they went crazy. They didn't panic. And that was the good thing. I love all these picks. You know, None of these names are gonna blow your mind other than Brian Breesy, who is, highly touted and fell into our laps. Everybody else are just solid players. And that's what the Saints were desperately in need of. So those are your seven picks in this year's 2023 NFL draft for our New Orleans Saints. Just to recap, the Saints drafted in the first round Clemson defensive tackle Brian Griese. Second round, Notre Dame defensive end Isaiah Forsky. In the third round, the Saints drafted TCU running back Kendrick Miller. Old Dominion offensive tackle Nick Saldivi. Fresno State quarterback Jack Hayner. Minnesota safety Jordan Howden, and Wake Forest wide receiver A.T. Perry. Excited for these young men. Congratulations. Their dreams came true. They are a part of the NFL, and my dreams are coming true because they're a part of the New Orleans Saints. Hopefully, they will set the world on fire with that Florida lease on side of their helmet. We shall see. We have off-season training camp coming up, mini camps coming up. Let's see how this plays out. The Saints, also along with the other teams in the NFL, of course, you have undrafted free agency. I'm excited to see what comes out of that, who the Saints pick up there. Not to mention, the New Orleans Saints did get under the cap. They do have money under the cap, so they can still make some moves for some available players in free agency, and at this point, you can get them pretty cheap. You don't have to break the bank to get who's ever out there in free agency. So there's still moves that can be made. So I'm excited, people. I was out after last season. I was so disappointed, so hurt, like the rest of the Who That Nation, but I feel good now. I feel good with these picks. Now it's up to you, Mr. Dennis Allen. It's up to you. This is it. This is it. I'm giving you a pass for last year because it's your first year. I'm giving you a pass. Now this year, this it, man, because this is your team now. Before you can make the argument that was still Sean Payton's team. Now this is your team. You got your quarterback. You made moves in the coaching staff. These are your draft picks. You brought in your free agents, all this stuff. This is your team. So there's no excuses. None for this season. And I'm praying he does well. I really am. I'm not one of these other fickle fans who pray for his demise. No, I don't. No, I want you to. I need you. Forget won't. I need you to succeed because if you succeed, the Saints succeed. If the Saints succeed, Kevin Reed is screaming "Who that" through the streets, and that's what I want to do. So yeah, man, the draft is over. Now we on to the next stage. Now it's time to start off season workouts and all this other stuff, getting ready for this upcoming season. I'll be back, everybody. I will return next week, I think, or is it in 2 weeks, when the schedule for next season is released, and we'll go over the schedule, the games that we are playing. I know who we playing, I just don't know when. And all that plays a part, a big part. It's not as simple and easy as you think. Of course, if it was, we would be in the Super Bowl every year. And so we'll revisit that then. If you want to contact the show, you can email me here, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look me up on Twitter at KB Radio Network. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever it is you're currently listening to the show, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show, as well as YouTube. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. I would greatly appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for joining me with this recap of the Saints 2023 NFL Draft. Oh man, I'm excited. Football, man. You think football is over, and it comes right back and it pulls you back in, and I love it. Until we speak again, everybody, I'm going to be screaming through the streets, who that?